Okay, this is how to do homework 1.5, number 19. This is the one that has the funky looking graph and it has some absolute value transformations. These are not ones that we've talked about specifically, so it'd be a good idea to go take a look at these. Okay, so first of all, to understand how to do this question, we first need to understand what the absolute value is really doing. Now, let's first take a look at this numbers example that I have written out over here. If I take the absolute value of a positive number, like 5, for example, that's just 5. Because all absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line. So what this really means is I'm going 5 units to the right, which is 5 units away from 0. However, let's apply this to -5. The absolute value of -5 is still 5. The reason is -5 is 5 units to the left on the number line, which is still 5 units away from 0 altogether. It's just 5 units in the other direction. In practice, what this means is if whatever is on the inside of the absolute value bars is positive, they don't matter. You can kind of just remove the absolute value bars and nothing will change. However, if whatever's in the absolute value bars comes out negative or is negative, I just remove the negative. My answer ends up being the positive version. So if I want to figure out what's happening to these different graphs or what's going on in these transformations, for both cases, I'm really interested in only the negative portion of things. It looks like whatever I do on the positive end is going to stay untouched because the absolute value doesn't modify things that are already positive. So the interesting things are going to happen kind of in this little quadrant over here. Something's going to happen to this little negative chunk. Okay? So first off, let's look at part A. It's saying I need to take the absolute value of my entire function. So what this means is every y value that used to be negative, it now is the positive version of what it was. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on here and grab myself a drawing tool. Let's really get in there. All right. I apologize for the pixel deficiency. This was the best screenshot I could grab at the moment. Okay. So let's take a look at this. So if I'm going to do, I'll just write it here since it's not visible. If I have y equals absolute value of my function, what this really means is everywhere that used to be a negative y value, if this is negative, I'm supposed to make it the positive version of the number. So let's go over here, for example, just right in this spot. It looks like 1 is over here, so maybe this is some kind of fraction, right? Maybe this is like negative, I don't know, 1/5 or something like that. Well, whatever this value is, it needs to turn from negative to positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go the same distance, but positive, right there. Same deal over here. I'm going to go, let's try this value right here. I need to go the same distance, but positive. Maybe like that. If I grab a point over here, let's say, I need to go the same distance, but positive. So that's about right there. Yeah. Okay, so real quick, I don't need these dots that are actually on the line. I'm sure you can actually see the pattern. The pattern that this is making is whatever I used to have down here, this actually just gets flipped up to the other side. So instead of drawing this, I'm going to go ahead and make myself a line, and I'm going to try to duplicate it. So this right here, this is going to get rotated to the other side, or basically flipped to the other side. Oh, there it is. So I'm going to take whatever I have here, do a little vertical flip, and that's going to go right there. Okay. Same deal with this line, whatever this line was before. So it looks like this line is all at an output of -3. Okay, well, my output of -3 needs to turn into a +3 because of the absolute value. So this is going to end up being over here at +3. Actually, +3 looks a teeny bit higher. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. So what this transformation essentially does is it takes any negative portions and it flips them to the positive side. Okay, so this is a duplicate of what I just had over there. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do the same thing for part B. So again, Because my absolute values don't do anything to positive numbers, I could pretty much just leave this little corner untouched. The only thing I really care about is what happens when I plug in negative x values. So what I'm interested in, just so I have it written, is y equals f of absolute value x. I'm going to throw this where I can see it when I'm zoomed in. Yeah, looks fine. And we'll get in real close. All right, so I'm interested in what happens when I plug in negative x values. So let's actually do that. Let's plug in some negative x values and see what happens. If I have f of, not like that, f of absolute value -1, like this, what this means is I'm really going to have f of +1. So because the absolute values change this -1 into a +1. So in other words, my output, when I have, so my output is going to be the same as it is for +1. So here's my output at +1. When I plug in -1, it should be the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the extra dot. I really need this one. So that's this guy over here. I'm going to do the same thing for 2. If I plug in -2, that's really going to be the same thing as plugging in regular 2. So let's look at where my point is. If I plug in 2, it kind of looks like I'm right there. So I need to do the same thing for -2. Boop, right there. Okay, so there it is. Okay, same thing for 3. If I plug in my -3, that's really going to be the same thing as plugging in my +3. And it looks like my output for +3 is 3. So I'm going to have the point 3, 3 up here. Okay, same deal. I'm going to plug in -4. And here's, so when I plug in -4, that's really going to be the same thing as plugging in +4. What do I get at +4? It kind of looks like another 1, maybe. Yeah, +1 is kind of like that. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in -4, and it kind of looks like I get here. And finally, if I plug in -5, that's going to be the same thing as plugging in +5. And when I plug in +5, I get 0. So if I go ahead and play connect the dots, I basically have a line that goes like this, and it connects down this way, basically like that. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see my general appearance. When I do this absolute value on the X portion, what that does is it basically mirrors this portion right here. That portion gets copied to the other side. So this whole picture gets moved to this side, kind of like a mirror. Okay, so this is how you handle doing absolute value transformations to a function.